Welcome back to the Be a Man podcast, where we encourage men to be better men. Let's get into it. All right, welcome to the podcast. I am excited for this interview tonight. JC, welcome. Why don't you introduce yourself? I know a little bit about you, but for those who may not, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody who you are?
Oh, man. Well, I'm JC Groves. I am a church planner. Let's see. Let me do this in a different order. I'm a husband, a dad of 6, a church planner. I am a brand new church planner. I've been in student and college ministry for about 20 years. And about 2.5 months ago, my wife and I packed up our U-Haul, all the stuff. We sold our house. We moved back to Chattanooga. No job, no house. Said, all right, God, we're going to play the church. We got to trust you. And here we are. So, served in Georgia, Tennessee, Utah, and now we're back in Georgia.
That's awesome.
I got 6 kids, 12 years old and under. 3 boys are the oldest, 3 girls are the youngest. So we got Moose, Butters, and Bubba, or let me see if I can remember their names. Kaden, Colton, and Corbin. And then we have Sissy, Tink, and Little Red, or Kenzie, Katie, and Karoline. And we lived in Utah. It was in the water. That's why we have so many.
That's funny. Yeah. Yeah, we have 4. My oldest just turned 13. So
that's awesome.
Very similar. I've worked in youth ministry a long time, but it's a little different when it's your own. Because in youth, you can kind of go home and step away from it, but when you go home and you go back to it, it's a whole different animal.
Here's the thing that I'm learning. They know you. Yeah. They've seen you in your underwear. They've heard you when you stub your toe. They know what it's like when you're in the shower and there's no towels in the closet. They hear you yelling. Like, it's not this like, oh, that's my youth pastor. He's great. Like, they know me.
Yeah.
But I love it. They're good kids.
Yeah.
And my wife and I, we've been married 15 years this coming October. And so next year we'll be married 15 years, together 17. So she's from Paris, Texas. I got me a Texas girl.
Right.
And sorry about that. Got me a Texas girl. She was former Amish. And they got excommunicated or whatever when she was probably, just a little kid. But that girl can make some baked goods. She can churn some butter. That's why we got 6 kids.
Hey, we I didn't know that. We've been married. We'll be 15 years here in 3 weeks.
Wow.
And
that's awesome.
My wife comes from an Amish background in northern Indiana. So, hey,
what?
Who knows?
Dude, yeah. Our wives are cousins.
That's right.
They're related. My wife's maiden name was Yoder.
Okay, mine's Beachy, which is very similar.
Oh, yeah. Beachy, yeah. My wife, it's funny because here's the crazy thing. Like, my father-in-law, he wanted his daughters to marry former Amish men because, they're the only ones that know how to work. They're manly, and then my brother-in-law and I are big, bald, bearded dudes. He's a firefighter. I'm a pastor. It's like, we don't know how to work real jobs because we're not plowing the fields with horses. So.
Yeah.
That's too crazy.
Yeah. So I've listened to your guys' podcast since really it started. And it's why don't you tell everybody what you guys do and what you're hoping to accomplish? And I mean, you guys have accomplished a lot already, but goals for the future, all that kind of stuff.
Man, so we have a podcast called the Recovering Fundamentalist Podcast. And we started this thing, man, January is going to be 4 years since we started out with this podcast. And, I was driving to Texas and I was listening to podcasts and I was like, there is nothing for former Baptist, former Baptist, people that were trapped in legalism. I was searching any and every podcast that I could 4 years ago. And I was like, there is nothing like this. So I called Nathan Cravat, Brian Edwards and Nathan Cravat are my 2 co-hosts on there. And I called Nathan 2:00 in the morning. I said, hey, are you up? He's like, well, I answered the phone. What's up? I said, bro, we got to do a podcast. He goes, okay. I said, no. Like, we need to call it like Recovering Baptist or Former Baptist or Freed from Legalism or when my brain goes, man, I throw noodles on a wall and I'm just like, let's just figure this out. Nate, he's like, okay, I'm all in. I've called that guy we've been best friends for 25 years. And I will randomly call him with just ideas, and he's like, okay, let's do it. But okay. So this one, he got a wild hair. Well, we had another guy that was going to be on the podcast with us. He was a pastor, but it didn't work out. So it kind of sat dormant. That was in Christmas time. Well, about Valentine's Day, I called him. I was like, hey, we got to do this podcast, man. I said, we really need to make this thing happen. He said, let's make it happen. And so we got together and kind of put a mission statement together. And what it is all three of us, we added on Brian Edwards. All three of us were former independent fundamental Baptist pastors. We preached, unfortunately, tradition and preference over Scripture. We added to the gospel to fit our preference. I wish I could go back and change the first 20 years of my life because I shudder to think some of the sermons that I preached because I was doing what got the amens, but it wasn't Bible. Yeah. And so we started this podcast because we want to help and encourage people whose lives have been negatively affected by fundamentalist legalism in the church, but we also want to challenge those who promote tradition over Scripture. And I believe that tradition is an idol that a lot of people are bowing down to because it's what Mama did and Daddy did and Granny did. And we're raising a bunch of people that have faith that is a mile wide and an inch deep. It's as shallow as a chicken coop because it's built on Bible stories and traditions. And when you and that's where, as a college pastor, as a student pastor, when we see them get into college, their faith turns into Swiss cheese. Let one philosophy teacher start poking holes in their faith, and they have nothing to stand on because it's Bible stories and traditions. Well, I wore C. Okay, what does that mean? Well, it's a King James only. Why? Oh, because that's what my mama said. You know, like what? Why? Why do you believe that? And so, you know, we want people to hear this podcast, what our hope is for this. And there's a reason that we put Recovering Fundamentalist. One, we feel there's a historical precedence for this podcast. We're sitting right now close to 3 million downloads. It has obviously found a niche, and every day, and I am not lying when I say this, every day we get emails or text messages or people on social media that are like, hey, I found your podcast. You don't have a clue how much you are giving my experience words. Like, thank you for what y'all are doing. This podcast is to help those people, encourage those people, pastors that are burnt out, that are ready to throw in the towel and quit. Listen, when you get to burnout, you stop doing what's right and you start doing what's easy. And that's when Satan, I believe, slips in. We got a lot of pastors that are so sick of going through the motions. Today alone, I talked to 2 pastors. One guy just posted in our group and he said, hey, I've got 2 more Sundays as an IFB pastor, and then I'm free from this. He's quitting after January 1st, and he's taking a different church. But, like, people are leaving. I mean, they're leaving the IFB. Now, here's the other thing, and do not hear me, and somebody will get this clip and run with it, and you'll get trolled on here. We never say, leave the IFB. We believe there's a historical precedence that there is a calling to ask people, to encourage people to stay and to make a change in the IFB. And it's happening from within. When we started this thing, it was kind of a line in the sand type moment. We knew there was no going back. We're not getting invited to the camp meetings, and, we're not going to ever be on the sword of the Lord, and our sermons probably aren't going to be featured in the highlight of the Baptist reel, but, it's all right. We are, what we have done will echo through eternity, pointing people to the gospel. We also say Recovering Fundamentals because we want to recover the fundamentals. We want to get it back to the Bible, back to Scripture, back to the gospel, away from what it's been bastardized, if I could say that. I mean, that's what it is. They've taken Scripture and they've made it something that it's not, and that's disgusting. And I believe that makes God sick. And we are recovering that. It also stands Recovering Fundamentalists because if you've been an independent fundamental Baptist, in you is legalism. Inside of all of us, our go-to is legalism. And, once you're an alcoholic, you will always be an alcoholic. You are just a recovered alcoholic. We're recovering fundamentalists because I have a tendency to go to legalism. My first go-to at times is legalism. Then I have to stop and I'm like, wait a second. Why is that? Oh, because that's what Papa preached. You know what I mean? So we're pressing forward. Right now, if you go to the podcast and listen to current, we just had a conference called For the Sake of the Gospel Conference, and we are playing those messages right now. Mark Milione, who is the president of Baptist Bible College, Craig Edwards, Jared Wilson, Jared C. Wilson, incredible speaker. Nathan Bryan and I, we also did. So we're playing that. We're coming back in January, and the format's going to change just a little bit. But man, we've got some content and interviews lined up, and it's an exciting podcast. It opens a lot of eyes to see what that world is like, but it also helps people realize you're not alone, because in this world, you literally feel like you're alone, and that's legalism. It's made to feel isolated, but you ain't alone. You ain't alone. RecoveringFundamentalist.org. Check it out. I'm done.
No, definitely. Go check it out. You're talking to somebody who was raised in that background, so I know what you're talking about. It was very helpful to me. I've shared with tons of people, man. It's
that's awesome.
I remember the moment that my eyes were open. I almost went to Crown College, and and I ended up going somewhere closer in Indianapolis, and I went to a little Bible conference in Al Mohler with Southern Baptist Seminary. That's where I went. And he preached on the sovereignty of God, and it changed my life. And it was from that moment.
You don't hear that in the IFB.
That's right. I never heard.
That's awesome.
I'm not saying it wasn't taught. I'm just saying I never remember it being taught.
Yeah.
You know, we're kids.
Well, it's too close to Calvinism. It's too close to Calvinism that they're afraid to teach on the sovereignty of God. But I've learned that if you deny the sovereignty of God or not teach on the sovereignty of God, you're giving him place everywhere, but on the throne where he belongs. Right. And that's what the IFB has done.
Yeah, so it takes us from a man-centered to a God-centered view of life. I mean, really.
Tweet that. That'll preach right there. That's it. You're up in Indianapolis?
I'm in Illinois now. So I'm...
Illinois. Where at in Illinois?
Closest, I'm a pastor of a rural church in Illinois, but we're closest to Champaign. Okay. Where University of Illinois is.
Dude! Yeah. I'm from Paris, Illinois.
Really? I had no idea.
All of my family lives in Mattoon, Champaign-Urbana. I was just in Trilla, Illinois, preaching a week-long revival at a Cumberland Presbyterian church.
Oh, yeah. I'm in Newman, which is right off 36.
I know Newman. Yeah. So my cousin, if you're in Champaign and Newman area, have you seen Ryan Dallas? He's a realtor. Yeah. His face is all over up there. That's my cousin.
Oh, okay.
Ryan Dallas, that's my cousin. Hi. I drove up there and I was like, oh, Ryan, you spent a lot of money on advertisement, bro. Sorry about that. Now that we've just told all your listeners.
That's okay. I don't care. I'm a pretty open book. We're in the middle of nowhere, so.
Yeah, buddy. You can see them coming.
Yeah, that's right.
But you got to hunt deer with shotgun. That's the thing I don't like about up there.
It's true. It's kind of, it's frustrating.
It's because it's so flat, then bullets would never
end.
Yeah. And you're in Illinois.
Oh, yeah. It's farmland everywhere.
Goodness.
Frustrating part of Illinois is, you know, everyone thinks of Chicago, but that's not.
Yeah. Not at all. Not at all.
Any of Illinois.
So I was born in Paris. My papa pastored in Horace, Illinois, which is just outside of Paris, for 43 years. Little bitty 2-bit town. It's like 8 houses there. But we lived there, and then we moved to Greenwood, Indiana. And we lived there until I was 8, and then we moved here to Chattanooga.
Right.
So, man, we were so poor when we lived in Indiana. We'd go to KFC and lick other people's fingers. And Dad would sit outside of the RCA Dome and be like, man, the Colts game is happening right inside of there.
I like hearing you call it the RCA Dome, because not only people our age would know.
Nobody knows.
So, yeah,
that's exactly
I grew
right.
up in Mooresville, so I mean, I wasn't too far away.
That's awesome. We named our kid Colton, not Peyton, Colton, because we're Colts fan. We don't care about Peyton Manning. Everybody around here is like, we love the Colts because of Peyton. I'm like, no, you're not true Colts fans. So, man, I wish the season would kind of end right now, though. The Colts are having a horrible season.
It's rough.
So,
it's rough.
I think Jim Harbaugh is going to come back and be our coach. Mark my words. All right, that's all.
We'll see. He's done something with Michigan that I did not think would happen. So, I thought he's
reached the pinnacle.
I thought he was kind of wrapped up, but, you know. So, let me ask you this. Talking about the IFB, do you think the IFB is still in existence in 20 years?
I think the IFB will still be in existence in some regard, because I think what's going to happen is here's what always happens. We've seen this in the 4 years that we've been doing this, the pendulum swing. Mm-hmm. You have a lot of people that will come out of the IFB, but they swing the pendulum so far to the other side. It's the tale of two ditches, DITCH. They go from one extreme to the other extreme. But what happens is they realize that the other extreme has just as much legalism and just as much junk as the IFB ditch does. And so then they're like, well, I'm going back to what I know and what's comfortable. And so they jump back in it. I think it'll be around because those people that go from one extreme to the other, they'll go back to it and there'll kind of be a resurgence, if you will. I think that it will always be around. It's kind of like, and I hate to say this, but I don't think your listeners would worry, but Southern gospel music.
Yeah.
I used to travel Southern gospel music. I sang professionally. You look at Southern gospel concerts and the crowds are shrinking literally by the concert because the crowd is literally dying off and it's not replacing itself. I think that's what's going to happen with the IFB is so many people are waking up to the truth of Scripture that their eyes are being opened. However, legalism is legalism, and there's places like Crown and Pensacola that are teaching this man-made ideology, and you're always going to have a form of legalism. So I don't think it's going to go away. However, I do believe that there's an army rising up that's pushing back against it, which the podcast is, I mean, we've kind of been the pioneers in certain ways, getting the scrapes on us going through the briars, and there's tons of people. We have a network now that they're hitting it in different areas. And so I think what you'll see is the IFB light, the IFB new, like the new IFB. You're going to see the people like Steven Anderson's that is just disgusting, if I can be honest. Yeah. I mean, there's some videos that have just come out in the last couple of weeks that are absolutely evil. It's not even, there's no form of godliness in that. So you're going to have that rise up, the Tommy McMurtry's and the people like that. You're going to have the extremes that will always be present, which is what I call high church IFB. That's your Clarence Sextons and people like that. The camp meeting crowd, as long as the South is around, there's going to be camp meeting and people slinging snot and spitting. So I don't think it goes away. I think what happens is in 20 years from now, if the Lord tarries, amen, that we will continue to see this, and here's the word, resurgence. There's going to be a reformation in the IFB where people are going back to the gospel, and the IFB is changed from within. The IFB that's full of legalism and hate and rules and laws and man-made ideology, I wish it would die tomorrow. Yeah. The IFB that taught good things, and we just did an episode of this, the good things that I learned in the IFB, that's what I hope continues to carry on.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've often kind of compared it to, I see a lot of similarities to the Catholic Church with the IFB. There's this thing you have to do, and they will never say that, but it's always implied that you're not doing enough, or you're not, sharing enough, or passing out enough tracts, or whatever.
Oh, and you're living for acceptance rather than from it.
That's good.
Sorry.
No, that's
I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you completely. And I hope that there are changes, and I agree with you, the hate crowd, all that, I hope it does die, because often that's what those kind of things need to happen, is just to die out, and we move on and press on, and hopefully people's eyes are open to the true gospel. But I think that starts with godly men, and with my channel here and a lot of other guys, I'm about encouraging men to be better men, and the start of that is stepping up to what their godly role is as men.
That's right.
What are some things that you think are essential to biblical manhood?
Man, there's so many. I believe the number one thing is accountability. I've seen good men made great with accountability, and great men become nothing with a lack of accountability. I believe the church, in every aspect of our life, we have to have accountability. And I'm not talking about sugarcoat, yes men, silo accountability. I'm talking about getting some guys around you that are going to call you out on your crap. that aren't just going to allow you to they're not going to pacify you to feel good like you are getting a high five that you have accountability, but it's what's really, they're pressing in to make sure that you are walking with the Lord, that you're loving your wife, that you're leading your kids. I believe that is a form of godly manhood. You've got to have that. You got to have the brotherhood. I think the second thing is honesty. I believe that too many men, especially in the culture we grew up in, you don't show emotion. You make sure everything looks right, sounds right, you're right.
Yeah.
You can't show error. I think we need a generation to rise up and say, hey, I'm messed up. I got a lot of crap going on in my life, and I need help. Counseling is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
The culture we grew up in, you don't go to counselors. That shows weakness. I'll tell you, I have sat on a couch and bawled my eyes out with my buddy, who is one of the most manly men you'll ever meet in your life. He's like, bro, this is how you get it. You talk about it. And, I've done that. So those are the top three things that come to my mind, just, right off the cuff. Just accountability. You got to have it.
Yeah.
Open honesty. Go to some counseling. Be real. Just, man, golly bum, stop doing stupid stuff. I get more guys just
that easy.
Yeah, in all honesty, I just want to slap some people sometimes. And if I could just be blunt, like as a pastor, I get guys and they're like, I don't know why my life's so messed up. I'm like, because you're a freaking moron. That's why. Yes, you have an affair, your life's going to fall apart. Don't have an affair. You would think it would.
I know.
I don't know. Drives me nuts.
Hey, you talked about not showing emotion there. Why do you think that started? Because I completely agree with you, and that has been a struggle for myself in my marriage as well.
I think it's a generational thing, because my dad, no emotion. Our job is to put everything in. We take everything on. We don't talk about our feelings. And listen, I'm not talking around, sitting around, holding hands with a bunch of guys, sitting on Jesus' lap, stroking his beard, singing Kumbaya or Have Thine Own Way. None of this Jesus is my boyfriend stuff. But having a conversation where you're able to open up and be honest with him. My dad just walked in. I'm talking about him right here. But I think we grew up in I'm at their house because it's like a daycare at my house with all 6 kids. But I think, we were taught, especially in the IFB, that your emotions are masculine is yelling. Masculine is shouting amen. It's wearing a suit. It's carrying your Bible. It's being hard. Which what happens is burnout. What I said a minute ago, they stop doing what's right. They start doing what's easy. That's when you start making bad decisions. You cover up stuff. You look over things. I don't know if there's a that is not my dad using the restroom, by the way. That's just the faucet. There's I think really, what I've learned is I want to model for my boys how I want them to react. You're not a pansy because you are showing emotion. You're actually being more open and honest if you just show your emotion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, sorry, my ADD went off right there. I got all
You're good. Yeah.
confused, but I think that's where we're at. It's a cultural thing, I believe, too.
Yeah,
So,
I think, that's a good point. I think it is. And I think, I know it's been a struggle for me personally in my marriage and different things to get past some of those points. And it's probably always going to be a little bit of work in progress, I think. It takes time. And my wife wasn't raised in that, so she doesn't understand it. And so
mine wasn't either.
it's hard to, it's hard to explain some of this IFB stuff to her because she has no idea what I'm talking about.
Sure.
Yeah.
Nor does mine. And listen, I married one of the most emotional women you'll ever meet in your life. She'll look at a sunset and be like, oh my God. And she'll start crying. I'm like, what are you crying about? Like we can watch a commercial and she'll lose it. I'm like, you are so sensitive, But I think the other thing is, and I'll be honest, like, I think that goes to a lot of areas, like raising boys. So I have 3 boys, that are the oldest, and like one of them plays soccer. I just don't consider that a sport. And I was, I'm struggling. Like,
a lot of life.
They love video games. Yeah, they love video games. And I'm like, why don't y'all get out and dig a hole or do something, but I want to teach them that being masculine is not just like, there's so many ways. You are still masculine if you show your emotion. Mm-hmm. You're not a pansy but now don't walk in and be like, I got a splatter. And I'll punch you in the face and be like, get it out with your teeth, kid. I'm not going to punch him in the face. That's abuse. But raising them, I want to raise boys that man, they know who they are. And when you're confident in who you are, I believe your emotions will follow that because you're not worried about what people are going to think about you. And my whole goal is I want to raise them to live from acceptance rather than for acceptance. Because if you're looking for acceptance from everybody, you're going to change depending on who you're around. If you live from it, you're the same. You're just consistent. And I believe that's the biggest thing, is just teaching consistency.
Yeah, that's really good. I think that's a really good point. I think, I think we need to do more just trying to, I guess I'll throw this at you. What are some things you're doing with your boys right now to try and encourage that?
I sit down with them, I look them in the face, and I'm like, what are you thinking about? What's going on in your world? I'll be honest with you. Today, my youngest boy, Bubba, he is 6, maybe 7. I don't know. He's like that tall. I have no idea how old he is, but dude's got a bad attitude, man. We've started letting him play since we've moved. We let him play Fortnite with some of his friends from back in South Georgia. And I've watched this trend of his attitude just over the last couple of weeks get worse and worse. I come in today and he's losing it over dishes out of the dishwasher. And I snapped and I got on him. I grabbed his face. I said, boy, you better change your attitude right now. I'm going to change it for you. Go to your room. And, it's the first, they've only seen it a couple times where I've gotten in their face and physically like, what are you doing? But I had to snap him out of it. And so, he's so much like me. He doesn't cry. He didn't cry at my grandfather's funeral. He just takes everything in. So he's sitting there and he's just, I said, Bubba. And I wanted to change it. And so I got in his face. I said, son, listen to me. I love you. I am proud of you. You've messed up, dude. You can't act like that. If you act like that when you're 17, 18, you're going to go to jail, bro. You're going to do something stupid. And if I didn't love you, I'd let you act like that. But because I do love you, I'm not going to let you act like that. I'm going to be hard on you. And you may hate me right now, but that's all right. I want you to do better. Do better, son. I just saw a tear roll down his face. I was like, all right, got him. In my head, I'm high-fiving myself. I was like, finally, got through to him, But it was like, and then he hugged me, and there was a change in him. But with them, what we're doing, I have learned, especially because they're so close in age, I'm taking them out by themselves. Because what I was convicted of, I was doing everything in group setting. So I'd just take all 3 boys, we'd go fishing, or we'd all go down to Duncan. And so what I've realized is they need one-on-one dad-son time. And so, excuse me, my boy Butters, he's 11. He has loved Dunkin' coffee. I don't think he loves the taste of coffee. I think he likes coffee because he knows that's mine and his thing to do. So we'll go sit down at Dunkin'. He'll put his coffee in there. He sits down. He's like, so, tell me about your day. I'm like, who are you? Are you like a 40-year-old man? But it's become our time. Bubba, he likes to go to Waffle House. So we'll just sit there. And then he'll get in the car, and he said this on the way home a couple of days ago. He's like, Dad, I like when it's just me and you. I'm like, that's cool, Bubba. I'm not doing anything earth-shattering. I think what you've got to do is just show up. Just be there. That was something my dad taught me. We built a log cabin up in Gizzard Creek up in Jasper, Tennessee. We didn't talk about a lot, and it drove me nuts when he kept asking me, what are you thinking about? What you thinking about? I was like, nothing. I'm not thinking about nothing. And now that I'm with my boys, I realize I ask them the same question because it's awkward. I don't know what to talk about in certain ways. And I'll be like, my son's 13. This is hilarious. You can edit this out if you want, but he had his first physical as a 13-year-old the other day. He come walking in. It's like 2:00 in the morning. He wasn't asleep. He sticks his head in my room and goes, hey, Dad, I said, yeah. He's like, this might be an awkward question, but like, do I need to prepare down there? Because, man, it's like a forest, bro. I was like, what? What are you talking about, man? He's like, I didn't know if the doctor needs me to like fix some stuff for him. I was like, bro, go to sleep. Like my thing with them is how I've been with my parents. I just want open honesty. Like, just be real. I'm going to tell you what it is if you like it or not. And I believe moving forward, Kim and I, my wife and I have talked about this. We want to create a place where our kids they're not afraid to come to us with anything, good, bad, or ugly. Like, if they messed up, I'd rather them come and tell me that. And I tell them this all the time. Hey, because my son, he started about 4 or 5 months ago, started recognizing the female. Thank God it's not male. He started recognizing the females, and he'll be like, Dad, man, and he's sitting in his room. He's got a little bit more of my wife in him. He's a little bit more sensitive than sometimes. I'm like, bro, what you doing here? Let's toughen that up a little bit. Punch him in the arm or something. But he's like, Dad, I feel so ashamed. I'm like, hey, dude, that's a good thing. That's called conviction. Like, don't lose that, especially when you start dating. Don't lose what you're feeling now. But that's the open honesty that we have tried to start creating when they're kids, to tell us what you're feeling, what you're thinking. And listen, they don't come with a manual. I've read every book. I just finished a great book, How to Raise Men, Not Boys. I highly recommend that book. It's great. There's nothing that I've read in raising boys, raising daughters, because it's like I'm a boy dad and then I'm a girl dad. And like, I'm learning, it's a trial and error in certain ways. And I've messed up big time with raising them. I've probably relied on electronics a little too much because there's 6 of them and they're like chihuahuas on Red Bull, and I'm sick of it. And so I'm like, go play videos or turn a movie on. But just being present is what we've tried to do. I'm rambling.
That's really good. I think that's really helpful to dads out there who are just kind of, I think we all struggle with that a little bit. And, my son, we don't have the same personality, so we can get along a little easier. But my oldest daughter, we are exactly alike, and which is nice when we think the same way, because we do a lot. But when we don't, it's tempers flare a little. But always trying to figure out that if you just talk with me, don't shut down. Just talk. We can work through this, but I need you to, let it out there in a respectful way, and let's get it out there and figure it out together. It's frustrating, patience-wise, for me at times. A lot of times.
Yeah.
But
I'm with you.
You just hope.
Something that I did that I would encourage your listeners to do. It's been a little awkward, especially at first, but it's one of the things that my son, I did this probably when he was 9, and just a couple days ago, he's like, Dad, you remember when you did that? Yeah, he goes, man, that meant a lot to me. This is like 3 years later, but there was a point, we did a episode on fatherhood, and what I did after that is I took every one of my kids, I don't think the 2 youngest I did, but I got down on their level on one knee and looked them in the eye. I said, I want you to know I love you. I don't love you because of what you do for me. I don't love you because of who you are or anything you have done. I love you for you, and I'm proud of you. And I want you to know you're probably going to do a lot in this life that I'm not going to approve of, but I'm never not going to love you. And all 4 of my 4 oldest, I did my 4 oldest, all 4 of them, they were just crying because it was honesty. It was just on their level, and they remember that. All 4 of them remember that. This morning, my daughter turned 9 years old today, and this morning she woke me up at 4:15 because we do Waffle House. We go to Waffle House and eat breakfast. It's their birthday tradition. So we woke up, and I swear they're trying to do it earlier and earlier every year, because 4:15 this morning I'm sitting at Waffle House in Ringgold, Georgia. I'm like, why are we here? We ate, then went back home, and then I woke up with heartburn at 5 a.m. But we sit down, and she said, Dad, thank you for what you did. I said, what are you talking about? She goes, that time you told me you were proud of me, that meant a lot. This morning she said that. And I was like, wow. That was one of those things that it was so awkward for me to do. It wasn't really modeled, I guess you could say. We don't come from a very emotional family. Like my family, we love each other. We're not huggers. I love you. It feels where we're like side huggers. We love each other. We're just not, we don't show emotion. Listen, bro, my kids are going to know I love them. I hug them every chance I can get. And it's almost awkward because I'm like, come here, give me a hug, man. You know, I love you. And Dad, my daughters will be like, hey, guess what? They're like, Dad, we know you love us. And I just want them to know so much. And so, but I've noticed as they get older, the hugs are getting more awkward or they're like stiff as a board. I'm like, put your arms around me and hug me, kid.
Squeeze.
I think the biggest thing, just be present. Just be real. They don't need fake. They don't need you to have every answer to every question. They need you to say, I don't know, every once in a while. They need to see you struggle. They need to see you not perfect, but they also need to see you just being real in their life. That's what I've learned. And man, trial and error. Hey, we've done good. We've kept 6 of them alive. So I feel like we're doing okay up to this point.
Yeah. Don't give up. Yeah, that's good. Let's switch gears for a minute. From fatherhood to you personally.
All right.
What are you working on to become a better man yourself?
Yeah. My biggest thing right now is we are in week 3 of church planting. And so I have really been convicted over just the last few weeks of everything I've done has been focused on launching a church core team. And I realized that my study has been to prepare a sermon to preach because I'm preaching every week now to a church. And I've realized that my spiritual walk in certain ways, I'm not doing anything personally. Everything I'm doing is to feed other people, and I've not been eating. Now, yes, there's some spiritual eating when you're preparing sermons, but you're preparing sermons and taking it in for yourself is 2 totally different things. And so I've started, doing my sermon prep later in the day. In the mornings, I'm focusing on me. I'm getting those guys around me to just speak truth into my life. Because I'll be honest, church planting is not the first thing I wanted to do. I'm not the smartest person in the room, and I'll be the first to tell you about that. School has never been my subject. And so I battle a lot in here with Satan going, hey, why are you a senior pastor? Who do you think you are? I could do podcasting. I could do student ministry. I could do college ministry. I've been surrounding myself with positive guys that are not just yes men, but guys that are really holding me accountable there. I have tried to stop working when I get home. In the life of a church planter, that is hard to do because it is nonstop. It falls and, my papaw pastored for a long time. He used to tell me, I've got it handwritten in my Bible, there will always be more to be done than what can be accomplished. And I'm having to physically tell myself, stop working, be husband, be dad. And, here's a big step. Hold me accountable on this one. I'm turning my phone off and plugging it up in the other room because it'll be 1 o'clock in the morning. Wife goes to sleep. I'm sitting there, scrolling through TikTok or watching the Man Up podcast or something like that, and it's just like, I've got to take intentional pause. Rest is not something that we're good at as men because there's always something to do. I'm learning to take intentional pauses. I just finished a book by a monk by the name of Brother Lawrence, and his book is called Practicing the Presence of God. And in that book, he never preached, he never wrote, but he cleaned dishes and swept floors. And he said, I want to clean dishes and sweep floors to the glory of God. And he practiced the presence of God. And that's such a weird thing for me to do, but I'm intentionally taking pauses. And I'm not turning on my computer, my phone, reading a book, nothing until I've had be time. And so what I'm doing right now is intentionally being before doing. And it's hard because there's a lot to do. And so just taking that intentional time to stop and, really focus on my spiritual side, my shadow self, if you will,
those are really good.
That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, that's really helpful because I think we can get caught up in the day to day, and especially as pastors. And I like to ask pastors this, and I wonder what your take is on it, because we sow and do a lot, but we don't often see a lot of results. And that's something that was a hard thing coming from the IFB background, is because it's so results oriented.
Sure.
But that's really not our goal as pastors or as Christians even. The saving business is God's. We share the word and he does the saving. But even in our day-to-day, we often don't see results. You're working with kids, with teens, and I mean, they may grow up, you may never see them again. And what do you do to kind of battle that desire to see some type of result? I mow grass. I like to see the straight lines back and forth, but that's what I do.
Yeah, that's good. I would say, well, I shave my head to get it as smooth as possible every day. That's what to see results. Yeah, there it is. I would say work out, but that's a lie. You know, I want to. If I'm running, you need to call the cops or get in front of me. I can tell you that much. Honestly, I you know, that's a great question. I do graphics. I love, you know, doing graphics and like, you know, always challenging myself to come up with something a little bit more cutting edge. You know, I'm really pulling for stuff here because that's a good question. It kind of caught me off guard. But, you know, I want to, mowing grass, you know, kid.
I like seeing the straight lines, so that's why I do it.
That's a great one. I just don't know. I got kids now that do that. Yeah. So well, that's a blessing, man. I'm like, hey, boy, go out there and mow that yard. Yeah, you know, there's not really a lot. On the other side of that, when you were saying this, we've got the blessing now of coming back to Catoosa County, which 10 years ago, I planted a church in Catoosa County. 2 years ago, we moved into a $7 million building on Sunday, and I quit on Monday. God said, you're done. It's not yours to lead into the new building. Kind of felt like Moses in a way, like he got to the promised land. I got to lead 2 Sundays in the new building. But then we left. And then 2 years later, God has brought us back to the same community to launch Hope Church. But what's really awesome is Sunday night, I got to go baptize one of our former students. I had 2 more students reach out. These were little kids, you know, when we left, like middle schoolers that have given their life to Jesus. They're like, you're the one that told me about Jesus when you were our pastor. And getting to see that church in a way, I have nothing to do with that place anymore, but they're standing on my shoulders. Yeah. And so I get to see their ministry continuing to grow. And, you know, getting to see Sunday at our Hope Church launch, there were teenagers that were in my youth group there with their spouses and their kids that are now getting ready to be in. And it was just like 20 years worth of ministry. And I'm seeing, you know, their kids now coming into student ministry. And it was really cool to see that. That's the stuff that does my heart good, you know, like to see what I taught 20 years ago, even though it was jacked up with theology that was whack, the gospel will still get through. I mean, he talked through Balaam's ass. He'll talk through this guy. You know, that's it. So, you know, that's a great question. I told my wife the other day I need to get a hobby. I probably should get something that, you know, you see success in. That's a really good question. I like that. Yeah. I'm convicted. I have nothing. I need to go mow.
Give you something to think about at 2 a.m.
That's good. I like that. Yeah. Well, I'm eating Waffle House.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Goodness.
So I wanted to ask you, what are some other podcasts, books, anything like that you'd recommend to guys out there that want to grow?
Ooh. Yeah. So there's a really good book on leadership. It's called Canoeing the Mountains. It is, I cannot remember for the life of me who wrote that, but it talks about having a pioneer spirit, manhood, taking the lead, you know, not settling for status quo, but pressing forward. Canoeing the Mountains is a great read. There's a book called How to Raise Men, Not Boys. I would highly recommend you get that one. And then there's one that I just ordered. Actually, it's right here. Hold on a second. This is a great book on discipleship. It's called The Discipleship Gospel by Bill Hull and Ben Scholes. This is a great, really focus. A lot of the stuff that's not taught in the IFB, discipleship is not taught. Sunday school is, you know, but this talks about gospel-centered discipleship. Very good book. I'm on chapter 4 of that, and it's already something that it's radically changing how I look at discipleship even. So those are some of the books there. And then the good old King James Version on the
No comment.
Had to throw that in there, hey man. 1611. Podcast. I'm gonna be honest, man. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts anymore. I don't know if it's because we are doing it, but I'm true crime podcast. Like, I love listening to true crime, and I don't know if it helps my brain like read people or what, but I'm like, oh, I got a bunch of serial killers in my church. That's what I got going on there. But we do have a network called the RFP Network. These guys are, there's the Young Baptist podcast, there's the For Freedom podcast, there's Grow in Grace, which is two ladies from the Village Church. But they are awesome. Let's see, there's a Spanish podcast on there. Trying to think all the podcasts we have on there, but Beers and Bible, those guys are on there. There's this podcast called Be a Man podcast. We'd love to get on the network. I just can't find the guy to get on the network. Yeah. But yeah, so I'm weird. I listen to sermons on YouTube all the time. I have this bad habit. It's like Christian porn. I watch bad sermons all the time, and I don't know if you could put those two words together. I just did. Whatever. But like, I will get on, and if I'm preaching a passage of scripture, I will type that in and just listen to the first 5 pages of sermon. Man, bro, it's tough. It's tough. There's some really bad preaching out there.
Really bad.
Oh, man.
Yes.
Yeah. There's some guys that are full of more crap than a constipated elephant. I'll tell you that much. So.
You are not joking, man. You are not joking. But yeah, there's a lot of. I'm like, why are people attracted to this? And they just, it's the tickling of the ears, I guess. But it's just like, I don't see it. I don't get it. There's no meat.
I don't understand. Other than all I can go back to is, it's a new gospel, and the Bible said that it would happen. That there would be people that would preach things other than the true gospel. And, I guess we need more of us to rise up and call that out. But it's like it's had so many generations of just religiosity preached that it's almost become gospel now. I mean, we were just talking about this today, how much just in the South is preached out of context. If I hear one more person use the verse where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, he said he'll be there too because they're talking about attendance. I'm like, that is church discipline. It's not hard to realize that's not talking about your small worship service that you're trying to make yourself feel good about. Like, it's little things like that really start getting to me. If my people, which are called, I'm like, okay, I'll get on this soapbox and won't quit.
Mine's Philippians 4:13.
America's not in the Bible. I can do all things through Christ.
I can dunk like.
Oh, now that the transfer portal's open.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense, man. Bless their hearts. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, there's just so many resources out there for guys that can be encouraged, and there are good sermons out there. There are good things, and I hope when people listen to this, they're encouraged to hear a father, a pastor, a guy who is putting in the work, who is doing the job, wanting it to be all about the gospel. Because I hear it all throughout, but you're also real. You're not this fake whatever up there just trying to spat off stuff. You're genuine and real, and I really do. I appreciate that a lot. I really do. It means a lot to me, and I think a lot of guys who have come out of that IBFB background, they need to see this, and they need to see that guys can come out, they can be genuine, they can be real, and that's okay. It's okay.
It really is.
Yeah. Hey, JC, I don't want to keep you all night. Go ahead.
Let me tell you one more thing. So there is a community. I don't know if you've ever heard. It's called the Men of Valor community. They're part of the podcast network. These guys are awesome, and they do a lot of what you're doing too. They got a conference every August in Asheville, North Carolina. I'd love to get y'all connected together. I'm speaking at it this year, but it's called the Men of Valor Conference, and a lot of what you're doing is the same stuff they're doing. And that's great. Getting in community, great thing for men.
Yeah, I think so too. That's something I'm looking at starting here in 2023, is trying to get, even if it's just 2 guys, we're going to start getting together and see what we can do. And
hey, where 2 or 3 are gathered, right?
That's right. right, I don't want to keep you all night.
There it is.
I've really enjoyed this conversation. I really have. And I'll put all the links and stuff, things you've mentioned in the description, so guys can go check that out, and the website as well. But I'd like to end each podcast with giving you the opportunity to give the guys a challenge. It could be for this week. It could be for 2023. It's fair game. What's a challenge you would offer the guys out there?
Here's where I say, and I will challenge you with where God has been challenging me. If you are maneuvering or manipulating the Holy Spirit in any way, you're not trusting. And a lot of times what we as men like to do is hold on for control. We like to make sure that we have the steering wheel. I despise when my wife drives. The crap handle is part of my hand when she drives. Why? Because I'm not in control. Learning to give up that control and allow God to lead you and guide you. I can tell you this from the bottom of my heart, and he's proven faithful over and over and over again. God is always at work. A lot of times it might be behind the scenes where he's doing things we are completely unaware of, but one day we will benefit from. And I can tell you this, what God is doing in you right now is more important than what's going on around you. And maybe what you need is a perspective change. We just went to a Christmas parade a couple weeks ago, and my daughter Tink, she was getting really frustrated because right in front of us, with the crowd all around, right in front of us, the Shriners were on these motorcycles doing a figure eight, and they got stuck in front of us for about 8 minutes because up ahead, I could see, up ahead, a kid fell off a float and the ambulance was taking care of it. I could also see at the end, the jolly old fat man was on the fire truck coming towards us. But my daughter was getting frustrated because all she could see because of the crowd and where her perspective was the figure eight, the gas fumes. So I picked her up and put her on my shoulders, and she could see the jolly old fat man. She could see why the parade was stopped, not just what was right in front of her. And I think what we need to do at times is get a different perspective of the situation that's in front of you. Some of you right now, you may feel like busted, disgusted, you're ready to throw in the towel and quit. Maybe life sucks, and you just say, man, there's no hope to go on to tomorrow. I just want to encourage you. Tomorrow needs you. Your wife needs you. Your kids need you. The people in your world, they need you. Tomorrow needs you. Don't just see what's right in front of you. Know that we serve a God that sees the beginning, the middle, and the end. And man, what he's doing in you is more important than what's going on around you right now. Don't maneuver. Don't manipulate the Holy Spirit. Just trust him. God's got a plan. And I can promise you this. If we try to do our plan, we're going to jack it up, and it's going to end up a whole lot worse than where it is right now. Let him work. He will do it. So that's where I'm learning right now.
That's awesome. I don't think we could end any better way. That's really good. JC, I appreciate you, man.
Amen.
This has been great. I've really enjoyed it.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me on. I've really loved it. We'll have to get you on the RFP soon.
That would be fun. Yeah, I would really enjoy it.
All right.